So, crafting an experience. I want to take you through this because something that I need to help you so you can help us as UX designers. We could collaborate. How do we craft an experience in a way that helps us as a team, how everybody gets involved, and more clarity on what we need as UX design as a team. And so let me just switch here to the iPad, and I've prepared this so that I can be able to talk and annotate as I go. So, crafting an experience. Oops. Okay. Crafting an experience. So the first thing we start off with, when we have nothing, we start off with the first phase, which is discovery. In the discovery phase, this is where we start asking the main questions. We're trying to understand the what, right? That's like the main problem that we're trying to solve, whether it's for the business or for the users, or finding balance between these two. The what is going to help us identify what the KPIs are, what is the end goal that we're trying to reach, what can we test for, and at the same time align that with what do we want for the users as well. So it's a balance between, the business and the users, and trying to find that's essentially what we do, so we could test. This is how we figure out, when we get metrics, and is what tells us whether we have achieved what we're trying to do. And it also helps clarify that common goal that we're trying to accomplish. If the what changes, everything trickles down and changes as well. Then we have the who. These are like the personas, the members, the users, all that. Who, the when, at what point. This is time based, it get very complex. The where, this is also something that we need to understand. Where are the users going to interact, whether it's through the app, through a website, through maybe multiple devices. Where are they within their journey, physical location, are they home, all those type of things. Then the last one is the how. We have a lot of ways of doing the how. I think it's crucial for us to understand that the foundation of crafting an experience comes down to how we collaborate together, how we define and plan together what we're about to craft. I think this is the foundation. If something goes wrong here, or something's missing, not wrong, but something we miss or something, we always have to go back. And this is kind of like our drawing board. I know that we use the word story mapping, but let's just think of it like discovery. This is something that we work together. The concept of the four. Let me switch back to the iPad. The four amigos. And who are the four amigos? Well, we have number one is the product owner. Okay. Then let me just do something like this, a little face there. And then we have our scrum master. That's the second amigo. We have the engineer lead, third amigo, and the fourth amigo is going to be the UX designer. So these four amigos will typically get together and work together collaboratively on this discovery phase. Okay. UX needs all this clarity because we are the ones who are going to craft the experience. So let me start off with the product owner. So what we need from a product owner is to understand the KPIs, help us understand the metric, the thing that once we're done with this, how are we going to define success? How are we going to know that, we're hitting our goal? And if the KPI or whatever the goal is, if it changes, is the product owner who's going to be the one will help us pivot. They help us pivot towards, hey, things have changed. The goals are now a little different, but that's where we need that support, the KPI, the business, and, what we're trying to solve, the problem statement. That's what we need from our product owners. Can I move this? Okay, then let's go to the Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master, what we need from Scrum Master is the ability to the design sprint and how we carry out the work, how to break it down into our sprints, helps us with Jira and all that. And what the Scrum Master helps us also is to clarify the most important work. There's a better way to say this. What is priority? So then by having the product owner understand what our priority, what is the least amount of work that we could do to be effective to move the needle for the KPI and for the user goals, and how we can make that part of the whatever the MVP or the pre-MVP or release V1, or V001, whatever that is, that's the relationship. That's the thing that, between the Scrum Master and the product owner will help us clarify that so that we could all be able to effectively deliver the least with the most impact. Let's go to the engineer lead here. With the engineer lead, let me see if I can move this and let's push this to the side. There we go. Okay, that's better. Okay, so the engineer lead, why is the engineering very crucial in this discovery phase? Well, the thing is that having somebody technical that can help us understand, those technical limitations. And also, they're the ones that help us think about the architecture, the underlying microservices, the backends. They're the ones that are going to start thinking about, do we need to create an API for something? Do we need to start different databases, or what microservice is going to be used for what, how things are going to communicate, what do we have, what are we missing? They need to be there to understand how they're going to start laying down the foundation for the systems to work together. APIs, all that stuff. And without that, the reason why they're in here is because sometimes, I've had situations where, product owners, scrum masters, UX, we all get together and we didn't involve the engineering leads. And then come to find out after the experience has been designed, they bring up things that we didn't think about, and we have to go back to the drawing board and change things. And that's why it's very important for them to be involved. And of course, the UX, we're involved here because we're driving the experience. We are the ones who are thinking about the users. We're advocating for the users. What's the best experience? We're the ones that are going to be designing the UI. We facilitate gathering requirements and cross team efforts. And one of the things that we do a lot is we question things. Question why. We also simplify. And so we're always questioning why to gather clarity. All right, so now I want to talk about the outcome of all this work, all this collaboration between the four amigos, the product owner, the scrum master, the engineer lead, and the UX designer. The outcome of all this is going to be to eventually, for us in UX, when we do the design, we need clarity on what's going to go in the UI design. We're gonna need clarity because we're crafting the UI. We need all this information to what we're gonna design, in an interface. We also need clarity on defining the database, the data structures, like things that the content that's going to go into our UI. For example, if I'm designing a a schedule for a restaurant, and that schedule component or time, it's like a list of schedule when the restaurant is open, and it could be from Sunday to Sunday, from X time to X time it closes, and it's based on one time, that could be simple. But what happens, I have to design that same component for a show, uh particularly a show that does not play once a day. It might play 3 times a day, different times. One show starts at 6 p.m., the other one starts at 8 p.m., and the other one starts at 10 p.m. And how do we show that same schedule, but now with 3 different times? And so that's where the data structure is very crucial. We'll need information like that. or maybe we have the same component shared between a restaurant and a show, but the shows does not tell you uh they don't have any dining options. Like, a restaurant might have dining options. If you could dine in, you could pick up, or delivery, or stuff like that. Whereas, a show, there's no such thing as that. We'll need to find out that, what is this data structure for a show. We might implement the same component, but now that's missing. And, those type of things, those are the things that we need to clarify from the beginning, is the data structures. And then we also have here clarity, QA testing. Okay, so clarity on these user stories, each task or scenario, from the story map. Because when we go to QA, that's what we use. We go through that list. That's how we know what is the thing that we're trying to accomplish when we QA a specific story. Without that list, we can't hit the checkbox. I need somebody to log in, and after they log in, if they're a member, they get a welcome message, or if it's their first time logging in, and then we'll test against that scenario. If you've already logged in before, you're an existing member, you don't get that message, we test that out. Stuff like that. That's where we need clarity on each story so that we can test when it comes to QA. The other one, which is very similar, is clarity for measuring user goals. It's like, what is the overall thing that we're trying to accomplish, for the user. Are they hitting their goal? They're based on what we've designed, or we're designing it with those user goals in mind. And if we don't have those user goals, then we can't measure that. Also, clear KPI goals so that we can know how to measure those KPIs as well. So it's like, if we know that we're gonna run some analytics numbers, and track the conversion rates or whatever the thing is, are we tracking the right things? Are those KPI clears? And all this is so that we get to the phase 2 of the UX design process, which is conceptualization. We'll actually start building and crafting the experience. So this one is broken down by these 4 phases. Number 2.1 here is designing. Of course, is where we actually start, designing. Whether it's, we could think of it like wireframing, but this is a little more like when we start getting into like the high fidelity design. And then after we design something, we prototype it, see how it works, how it functions. We could use those to then test with users. We go out there and test the interaction models, etc. And then the fourth one here is the iterate. So during this phase, when we design, our scrum masters are going to be the ones who help us, break down the work that we need to break down so that we can accomplish these through our design sprints. There could be moments throughout these phases where we might be missing the mark on something. We might go into an XD session and evaluate what we've been designing and find out, this thing is not working. And so we go back to we iterate, we go back to the design phase, we continue to iterate all the way until we get to, to the goal of like having full functioning, UI designs. But the most important thing here is that if we miss the mark on clarifying, during the discovery phase here, if we miss the mark on the what, we don't define the main goals, or say that the goals are different. We ask different stakeholders, and one is to let's deliver the simplest form of an MVP, and then another stakeholder is like, no, we need a full perfect full experience that works on the app and on the web. That's a conflicting thing. And if we don't have that clarified from the beginning, from the product owner standpoint, that's not clear. That's where we get into trouble as we start designing. For example, we might start designing something for the web, but then our stakeholders need, a design design for the mobile app. That's more priority, but that was not communicated to the product owner. Then we have a problem because we've been designing for the web and we haven't even prioritized the mobile app. And so that's why this piece, this collaboration between the four amigos is so critical. This is very crucial, and I can't advocate more for, this type of collaboration. Yeah, I wanted to point this out because that's how we make sure that, we craft a good user experience and we follow a proper UX design process. We have all the tools at our disposal. We don't have to use all these tools, but they're there for us to use, and we'll know when to use what tools at what point and whatnot. And we don't have to always do user journeys. We don't always have to do, prototypes. We don't always have to do comp analysis, but they're all there. The most important thing is that we all collaborate, in this whole, crafting an experience. And if we look at it from a lens of how we've been doing this, we start off discovery all the way to if we look at it from a timeline perspective, discovery all the way into, let's do planning, and continues down to the backlog. What I mean backlog is like the actual work that's going to get implemented, and then UX picks up, and then developers, dev work, and then release, production, let's just say. I ran out of room here. But like, if we look at it this way, discovery phase is where we start understanding those, the problem statement, the user goals. Yeah, everything in the discovery phase. Yeah, all this, the who, what, when, where, why, we might have to plan out, what's the high level features, and we need to define we start planning like for who, for what personas and all that, personas, business rules, user journeys, we're trying to accomplish for the users. And these could be like conversation style, meaning that these could be written, in sentences. As a Fit Frank, I want to be incentivized to become a loyal member, stuff like that. For the backlog, that's where we start story mapping. So the story maps is what helps us understand what are the stories that are going to go into the backlog. If we don't, of course, we're going to get those story clarified based on these user journeys and what are the things that we need, through the planning phase. And the story map also helps us understand release. How do we break things down into, categories like MVP? How do we prioritize, etc., and then based on whatever's priority. So think of the story map as like the goals, activities, stories, and then tasks, and these could be like stickies, and then you have activities, and then you have like different stories, etc. This is where you break down, let me use a different color. You break down, this could be MVP, and then this right here is release V1.002, whatever, that's a story map. All this, so we could add to the backlog, and we could have UX tickets, design, and then from design tickets to dev tickets, and so on. And then of course QA, and then release. And of course, if in QA something's missing, we go back to the design phase. If in the design something's missing, we go back to the planning phase. And then in the planning phase, we go back to the story mapping, and so on, but it's crucial. So that this doesn't happen, we get the planning right. We get the discovery right. Make sure those goals, those KPIs, those all predefined exactly what we're trying to accomplish. So there you have it. Just wanted to do a little dump of like what's going on in my head and how I can help, clarify most of this to help us as a UX design team, do more effective and collaborative work. Thank you.